Hey guys, this is Dardamos with Dardamos Opinions, and I'm here with with Nosy. Who are you playing as?
I'm playing as EA Pangaea.
And I'm also here with one of my favorite co-hosts and another or a fellow Australian, Karen.
Yep, I'm here too.
So, Nosy, you said you're going in as EA Pangea, and on the power ranking, what would you say that Pangea is?
That's an interesting question. My opinion on that is that they are not at the top tier of EA, though I'm sure there's a lot of people that would strongly disagree with me on that. Um, I feel that they have a few issues that they need to deal with, in particular with attrition and poor leaders. But they do have some nice strengths to help carry them through, particularly the early game. And they have some magic diversity issues as well, which, if not dealt with by the god, can be a real problem going into the mid and later games.
Now, Karen, would you agree with that sentiment?
I think they sit either at the top end of your A tier or they'd be at the bottom end of S. I don't think they're as powerful as the top players at the top of the tier. And I agree they've got some diversity issues, but they're bloody powerful.
Now, what is the what stops them from being on that top end? And can you give me like one or two examples of a top end nation? And what is Pan lacking that brings it there, Novi?
Well, the best nation in age is probably Helheim, based on performance. They have a terrific sacred to catapult them into a strong expansion and good early war. And they have lots of good paths and uh, useful abilities to ensure that they're able to continue snowballing. Trouble that Pan will have is that a lot of their stuff tends to die in droves. Like they've got no protection, well, barely any protection. So they will catch a lot of attrition that isn't necessarily going to be the case for the elves with 24 defense and glamour and every other little uh, advantage they have to keep themselves alive and all the thugging potential that the elves have. Um,
One of the
uh,
things that I really appreciate from you, and I with what I got from Joe Brandon as well, is that your appreciation of magic diversity. What is a magic path that you feel that Pan kind of is lacking?
well, it's got lots of nature, and it's got a little bit of earth and blood, a little bit of water, and other than that, it does not have much. It'd be really nice to have some astral. Uh, is always great for the late game, but just simply having the options there. Sometimes you just need to have them there in the toolkit to deal with unexpected problems.
Perrin, if you could add one path to this nation, what would you add?
Astral probably, because then you could, if you had a good affordable Astral slave, as Pangea does in the late age, then you could use that to wire in any other magic you find. I think it's got to be either Astral or Death.
One thing I do see that it's they have the blood path, so yeah, I mean if they had an astral mage, it would be very like these guys could commune in right up. Now Nosy, who are your researchers going to?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting little problem. So probably I'll end up using the centaurs uh, quite a bit for the research. They're going to be the more efficient gold researchers, and I have a suspicion that I'm going to be struggling for gold in the mid game. I haven't played EA Pan before in a multiplayer game, and I just get the feeling, particularly with the build that I've taken, that I'm gonna end up having some gold issues if I don't get really big.
Is there a difference? Like, are you going to care which one you're doing, whether it's the Hierophant Tide or the Hierophant?
I will likely be recruiting more of the Hierophant because they have a little bit more HP, so I'll likely be using them during expansion. They also happen to be able to random Earth, which is a useful thugging path early in the game. which I think I will be able to make some good use of them as thugs.
Now, when you're saying that these guys are useful as thugs, I mean, they've got 3 protection, they've got 11 attack. What is so good about these guys as thugs?
Oh, I'm going to be gearing them up. So the Lion Pelt, which is nice and cheap, 5 gem item for Earth and Nature, gives them 15 head and body protection in armor. And the Earth randoms can obviously Iron Skin up to 20 natural protection, get up to 28 total. And other items as well for a little bonus. So maybe I've thrown some braces, probably a stinger, a shield, vine shield, maybe vine shield later, but probably an eye shield earlier. And with my particular bless, they'll rip PD apart, no problem.
Okay, now what are you going to? I mean, are any of the other mages like what's your main battle mage? What's your bread and butter mage?
Oh, the bread and butter mage is well, for combat, the Pans. They are the premier mage in age for them. Though worthy mention for the Dryad Mother being able to foul vapors out of the box. No particular randoms required.
Now with the pan, what are your first research goals going to be in order to get this guy where he?
With the Pan himself, he may not see much early combat because my early game magic is going to be the bless. But the priority is going to be initially construction 2, so that I have the items that I can begin thugging if I need to early, and then straight up alteration.
Okay, what's the main goal for alteration?
All of the good stuff along the way up to Mother Oak. Mother Oak's obviously the big goal there, but so I've got the self buffs, the Iron Skin, Temper Flesh. I've got buffs like Moss Body and Protection, Quickness. At Alteration 5, there's also Wooden Warriors. I may have missed one in there. Iron Warriors as well at Alteration 5. But basically, there's just so much good stuff for Pan in Alteration that I'd very strongly consider just rushing Alteration straight away. But I do want to be able to forge some items in advance of thugging if possible.
Now, Perrin, he mentioned Mother Oak. How contested is Mother Oak?
If there is a Pan in the game, it will usually demotivate others to contest Mother Oak. Just because Pan's nature income is so strong, they have the ability to cast it really early on, and often Pan will beeline for the research anyway, that it actually demotivates other nations to contest Mother Oak. If there's no Pan in the game, actually Mother Oak can be quite contested, but that's not the case here.
Now, Nosy, when you go for this, are you going to be overcasting it? Are you going to be doing it bare minimum? What are you going to be doing?
Oh, I won't be overcasting it by much, if at all. Exactly that reason stated by Perrin is that Pan's presence, people don't usually bother contesting Pan for Mother Oak. So I'll be stingy with the gems. I might do a little tiny overcast just for good measure, but it'll be close to minimum.
Well, you played in the game that I was playing as EA Pan, and we took Mother Oak. We put a minimum cast in it, and I was at like 1 or 2 nature gems the whole game, just fearing when somebody would overcast Mother Oak. That'd have been tough. Like I'd have been so much tougher. And it's really interesting because I think that there is that fear that if I overcast Mother Oak, that they will just hammer down hard on it. Now, of note, what are you going to be planning to do with these nature gems?
Well, gear, forts, and later on, the good nature battlefield spells, basically.
Okay, let's go into forts real quick. So, the grow fort is a spell, and what exactly does this do?
Oh, it spawns a fort in a forest. It's an adequate fort, like it gives you the bonus commander point, and allows you to start recruiting mages in a single turn straight away. I think it has
did
250 wall integrity to start with, and EA Pan only has the ability to build palisades, I believe.
I didn't realize you could do this in shallow seas.
Oh, sorry, you can too, but I don't expect to be getting in the water with Theridos in the game.
Now, with the you said so primitive forts that only gives you 1 CP, correct?
Primitive forts don't give you a bonus one, and this particular growth fort gives you a bonus one, so you get 2 commander points.
Are you planning on building forts outside anyways, or is it just going to be innate, or is it just going to be in your?
I'll certainly be forting any thrones, no question about that. I do intend to build other forts, but we'll see how the game goes. If I've got lots and lots of forest to work with, maybe I won't need to, but I expect I will. And it's largely going to be dictated by how things go. Hope, and maybe I can even take other people's forts. You never know.
That's that's the ideal is don't build your own.
Absolutely, let your enemies build your forts for you.
Now with your unit, what was I think we missed a pretty important page if I'm not mistaken, correct?
The Dryad.
Okay, so what makes these units important for your lineup?
The cancerous seduction.
Darren, have you ever played against an EA fan before?
Darren?
I'm playing against an EA Pan right now, and I've seen what those dryads can accomplish. They are cancerous. Cancerous is the correct term. And it's one of the reasons why you might build them as research mages, even though they're less efficient than Hierophants in some cases, because they can defend your forts.
So, it's kind of an interesting idea. Would you, Nosy, would you build these guys as your research mages?
Particularly early on, when I need to get volume of research, efficiency is less important right at the beginning in terms of like gold efficiency. But also they have that utility as soon as they're able to cast Swarm. They're murderous for unprepared nations to deal with. Like,
Okay, so
seriously, they cause in real life morale checks.
Yes, 100%. And they sometimes break you into other diversity if you steal mages with paths that you don't have.
Oh, I'm not going to pray for that. I just want to kill them for now.
now with this, how does the seduction work?
Basically, you need to have a retreating province available. And then it initiates, well, sorry, if successful in the seduction, I believe it's a check against morale. I forget what the specifics of the check are. The main detail is that almost all of them go to a kind of assassination battle, where the Dryad gets to be scripted like an assassin, and the defender does not get to be scripted at all. But basically, if the defender fails the morale check, they get captured and become your own mage or leader. If they fail the morale check, then usually what will happen is that assassination phase battle, and in some cases, nothing happens at all. It just fails altogether.
Now, will you start a war based on these mages to try to get yourself magic diversity?
Would I start a war with the intention of seducing enemy mages?
Yes.
Like, to capture them?
Yes.
No, I wouldn't be intending to diversify my magic. Like, I wouldn't be relying on seduction to diversify the magic. No.
So it's more of a bonus than a...
Absolutely, completely a bonus. If it happens, great. But the main effect that I want is that assassination phase battle.
Okay. So let's move into the units. What is your main unit?
Oh, without a doubt, the main unit is the White Centaur, the sacred. That's the centerpiece of the nation, really. It's quite a strong sacred. It has its downsides, but it's cap only, but very powerful and worth a bless.
When okay, so what makes these guys so strong?
Basically
said...
the stat line. So they have the lance, like a link 3 lance that can be used for repelling, and has a charge bonus. They have a
Is
good
this a
stat line for
one-time
support.
use?
No, it charge bonus is just for the first strike, but it's persistent. Like the lance is used repeatedly and it can repel. It's the bronze lance.
Now, this
Um,
hasn't been boosted because it's only size 3. It hasn't been boosted in length, right? It takes size 4 to increase the length.
Correct. Size 4 increases the length by 1.
Now,
It
does that
applies to
stop
any.
when you go to size
uh,
5? Does it give you another length?
No.
So it's that 3 to
Size
4 is the
four-
breakpoint, right?
Yeah. So any unit with a size 4, 5, or 6 gets an automatic +1 to any length 1 or more weapon. So
Okay.
the enchanted pike, the astral spear that's length 5, goes up to length 6 on a size 4 plus um, unit or mage.
Now, how important is this Berserker 3 to this chest?
It's certainly a sometimes useful feature. I think it is in general quite valuable for them. Obviously, Berserker, when it's triggered, increases this being Berserker 3, increases their attack by 3 and their natural protection by 3. The natural protection isn't necessarily such a big issue. Well, it's nice later in the game when you've got the skin buffs on them. But I mentioned before about the Bronze Lance repelling, and the Berserker 3 increases the attack skill that little bit higher to make it even more likely to get those repel checks.
I'm sure we'll probably be coming back to here when we're going over your bless. But units that are not going to be blessed, what are you going to be aiming for here?
Probably the unit I'll have the most of that isn't the White Centaur will be the Maenad, or however you pronounce that. The free spawn from the pans. But if I
Yeah.
do end up recruiting much of the other troop line, there could well be some harpies for some situational raiding, but probably more likely the centaur warrior. And if I get a suitable situation for it, I will recruit revelers, though very much depends on what the situation is.
Do you think that I've heard Pangea be referred to as an elf nation? How much do you subscribe to that belief?
Well, it behaves in a similar fashion because almost everything is stealthy. In fact, pretty much everything except the Minotaurs is stealthy, I believe, isn't it?
I
Yep.
think that some of these guys are not stealthy. Yeah, these guys are not stealthy. The Gator Warriors are that mistake.
Well, they're flaming hot garbage anyway.
Now, what is the chances of you actually elfing somebody? Like doing like a full out elf where you take 6 or 7 pop.
We can only hope.
Karen, you said that you were playing against Japan. Did you see them doing a lot of stealth moves, or was it mostly overt?
No, it was mostly overt, except for one situation where they used stealth to go through another person's territory to get to their target, to come from an unexpected direction, which is an interesting tactic. But they are definitely an elf nation. They don't have the same stealth rating that Glamoured Elves do. It's only stealthy 40 as compared to 65 on a Glamoured Elf. But as long as you're not facing heavy patrols, that's probably good enough.
So you're saying that on something like Helheim, they have a stealth of 65. Oh my goodness, that's quite a different. What exactly does that mean? Nosy, what does that mean for you with the stealth 40? Does that matter, or are you just gonna ignore it?
Actually, one of the nicest features about the stealth is the relative bonus to the movement through enemy terrain. So something that is going to feature in my particular build is that I'm going to be able to do deep raiding from my own provinces. So the
Okay, so
stealth,
let's.
I mean, it has its own properties as well. Like if I need to dodge a magic phase super combatant, then the stealth will allow me to do that anyway. Like patrolling doesn't factor in on that. But
I want to go.
the way that the movement mechanics works is that it's counted in half steps. Out one step out of the province, one step into the next one step out of the next one, et cetera, et cetera. And every step through enemy territory is reduced. The movement penalty is reduced by 1 by simply having stealth.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that. Now, which pretender chassis are you playing?
I will be going with the grey one.
Oh,
Okay,
interesting.
you're gonna. Wait, is that which Dominion?
The Trinity rainbow.
That one right there. Okay,
Sorry,
so
I'm
this
not
is
looking at
kind
your
of.
screen. Sorry.
I'm actually really excited about this because do I have my stream going? Maybe not.
I haven't
Ah,
been watching it.
Okay, so the gray one is I kind of want to go over Trinity right here because if you only take one, like if you take just this, you get one that's water, one that's death, and one that's nothing. Like, how does it split?
They all have water and death, and the number of paths they get is reduced from what you select. So in my given situation, I've got water 4 as part of the bless, and each of them end up having water 2 on their chassis.
Do you want to go over your paths for me?
Fire 6, air 3, water 4, earth 4, astral 5, death 3, nature 5, blood 4.
So you went full rainbow.
Oh yeah, heavy bless, imprisoned.
Now,
Dominion 6. Order neutral, sloth 1, heat 3, growth 2, misfortune 2, magic 1.
okay, my favorite part of this build right
Yes, that is always a nice.
That means that you're going to win the game. Congratulations.
Here.
that is gorgeous. Okay, so let's go into your bless real quick. What do you got going for?
Double attack skill.
Ooh, shine. Okay.
Yeah. Major shock. I did very nearly take swiftness. Defense and cold resistance, like minor cold. There's actually an interesting point on that one where I nearly went with something else, which we can get to in a sec. Now this is the interesting one. Larger. Magic weapons and spirit sight. Undying 2.
So you've decided you're rushing Uber then?
It's certainly an option. Major poison and blood surge.
Okay, so there are some interesting stuff that I see here, but Mandar, you get first crack at this. What's something that sticks out at you that you want to
I
talk?
think I know what the first one's going to be.
Mandar,
Sorry,
what's your first?
I think you said my name, but I had my headphones off. What was that?
Okay, so you get first crack at this. What is something that's unique or unusual that you either think is interesting or that you question?
Growth 2.
Oh,
Okay,
growth
wow.
2. That's an easy one. So I know that the throne settings in this game are basically that the thrones are going to be at player count and all level 2s. Far and away, the most common scale effect from thrones of level 2 plus is plus growth. Now, the decision to take growth 2 is also tied to the fact that I didn't want to tank any other scales any further. So I'm happy to drop growth a little bit. Now, if I'm playing well in the early game, I'll get big, I'll take thrones. Now, if it doesn't happen, then I'm done anyway. But on the basis that I'm big, I'm taking thrones. I expect I'll be able to get a plus growth throne to get to the fabled growth 3. If it doesn't happen, then no big deal anyway. Hopefully I got big. Order is required for the recruitment of the White Centaurs, and Sloth 1, I didn't want to tank that any further because at Sloth 1 I can recruit 5 White Centaurs straight away in the cap. I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm building forts in forests in my cap circle, etc., etc. I didn't want to tank Misfortune any further than 2, and I don't want to take less than Magic 1.
What is because I do want to hit my question about this is where are your main ads, dude? Where are your main?
Sitting in or on top of forts?
Okay, but Maenads are turmoil dependent. Is that correct?
I'm going to get heaps of them anyway. Like, more important is being able to recruit all the white centaurs I want. Maynard's a free spawn. I'm going to be getting heaps of them regardless.
What's interesting is I was able to get 5 and 6 with turmoil. I
want to
oh
be
no,
able
I'm
to
sorry.
recruit 7 a turn later.
Okay.
When I
Back
hit
on the topic of scales, why is Magic 1 special?
Oh, I'd love to take Magic 3. It's just that Pan's research is absolutely horrible. Function of low number of paths on expensive mages. It'll be great if I get lots and lots of forts and I can actually afford to keep them pumping mages and troops where required out. But basically, any magic that I can get from the scales will be very helpful.
Perrin, what is a what? Look at the blessings. Tell me what's something that stands out to you. Perrin, are you still there?
Taking double attack. Yeah, I'm here. I'm saying double attack skill instead of taking a fire resistance in there is slightly unusual to me. And again, going flat on the order turmoil, but I'm not a pan expert. This is a more offensive bless than my instinct would have taken me. It would have taken me in a defensive direction and thrown fire resistance in there as well. But I guess looking at the nation lineup, you're not expecting too many fire evocations or elementals out, are you?
Oh no, I am. We've got Uber, Yomi, Machaka, Arco. All of them are quite capable and probably very likely to want to lean into fire elementals.
So
Against
justify
me
it,
anyway.
dude. Why are you taking double attack rather than fire?
Because the white centaurs have a tendency to die, unfortunately. And that little bit of extra attack does make a big difference with the particular build that I'm running, at least in terms of melee attacks. Now, fire is something that I am going to have to try and work around. I've opted for the extra attack for the repel shenanigans. Fire resistance I did want to fit in, but with how expensive the overall bless is at the moment, I just decided that it was better to have the extra attack skill.
Now I'm gonna go after the elephant in the room, which is quite obviously elephant being larger. And what exactly is? Why do you take larger on this list?
Well, let's start with the point about the kind of units that want to take larger. So normally, like the pretty obvious case is that if you have a size 4 or size 5 sacred, larger is no disadvantage whatsoever. Gives a plus 30% boost to health, plus 3 strength, plus 2 to movement, to map move that is. Only costs one point of defense, and in general is quite a useful bless for anyone fitting that category. Or in addition to the size 4, also size 3 with bad formation fighter that EA Abyssia gets. Now, the other use case that I'm aware of for it is taking a size 3 unit up to a length 4 weapon. So the white centaurs have that length 3 bronze lance, which means that they can repel anything that's length 2 or below. They can't repel length 3 or 4 or more weapons. And taking up to length 4 means that there's a whole swath of new units and things that they can actually repel with their very high attack skill.
What is your attack skill at the end of the day when you have everything activated from Berserk to Blood Surge to...
Okay, so once you factor in the plus 4 from the Bless, plus 3 from Blood Surge, plus 3 from Berserk, they'll be at 21. And usually they're very quick to get to 1-star experience as well. So you end up having 22 attack on each of those at a length 4 weapon, which is pretty effective in repelling most things in melee.
So even though this looks like a relatively offensive, with the attack skill, it still is. In Blood Surge, even the attack basis is still a defensive use, correct?
Yes, the attack is of defensive use, and they still have high defense. One of the points with white centaurs is that they are not actually mounted units. They don't benefit from the reduced harassment penalties that your hell herdings and all sorts of things benefit. All the mounted sacreds benefit from. So they can't actually operate as the defensive thuggy type units the same way that those mounted ones can, especially with Berserk also hitting the defense, the penalty of -3 to it. But nonetheless, the defense is still useful for avoiding early attacks, and even under Berserk, it's still high enough to avoid a number of attacks that would otherwise be quite damaging. Now, the larger does also give a nice bonus to health, +6 up to 29, which I think the mechanic must have changed in a recent patch or something. It used to be +30% truncated down and then +1. So if you run the numbers, adding 30% to 23 comes to 29.9. I was pretty sure the way it used to work was that would have ended up being 30, but it's now 29.
It's really interesting that you say that, because one of the things I like about you and Joe Brandon are that you look into these exact stats. For me, it was like, 30%. That's 30%. Just out of curiosity, Vandar, what kind of player are you? Are you the one who wants that like the attack stats, or are you more of a field player?
I'm gonna level with you. I'm not real smart. I have to like play around with things to see how good they are. Otherwise, I'm like, this might be good, or maybe it won't. And sometimes I really do miss good units, and I think that they're trash until I actually use them. Classic example being late era Abyssia's Warbred, which I cannot wrap my head around the fact that they're actually good units for their price, but somehow they are.
Oh, yes.
Aaron,
they are.
what's your where are you at?
Was that me?
Yeah.
This will surprise people, but I like numbers. I like numbers a lot. I love the communion calculators. I love the attack defense calculators. I want to know I'm getting value. That said, I think there's a real place for experimental, like the feel based analysis you can only get from playing a couple of games.
Now, Nosy, knowing exactly the stats that you know, what exactly does this give you? I mean, knowing that, for example, 29 and 30, what does that mean in the grand scheme? Is it just one hit point, or is it more?
Well, it's survivability on a unit that struggles once it starts taking hits. So I've mentioned a few times already the attrition. They lack significantly in the area of protection. So they are going to be taking hits. Like the repel is going to help mitigate it, defense is going to help mitigate it, and going up against crappy indies and things, they're likely going to avoid any hits in melee. But basically, ranged attacks or length 4 weapons that in mass, when the defense gets harassed down, they are going to do chip damage. So having all that extra health is a nice little boon there. But in terms of the difference between 29 and 30, that isn't necessarily all that significant. It was just a detail that I noticed because I'm familiar with the way that larger was working, particularly with Hinnom, and it just wasn't behaving exactly how I expected it to with Pan.
I really like it because it's such a unique thing that I get from. I mean, like I said, like the big ones that you and Joe Brandon, where you actually know the stats.
If we can go back to larger as a defensive less, doesn't that this boosts them, this White Centaurs, up to size 4? That
Correct.
means you only get 1 per square. Isn't that going to cause a lot of harassment on a unit which has 17 defense and, as you say, has durability issues? Won't harassing down its defense at about twice the rate cause more trouble? I'm
Yes.
asking for the camera, not that I
Yeah,
disbelieve
no.
you.
No, I'm fully fully expecting the question anyway. Absolutely. The density issue is a drawback that is particularly going to feature as armies get larger. It's a problem that'll scale up. In particular, it's less of an issue at smaller size battles. It will result in increased harassment for the centaurs, but with the repel mechanic, I'm banking on that being able to mitigate a substantial portion of the incoming attacks. And additionally, so with all of the extra strength buffs and everything, they're going to be hitting pretty hard once they get Strength of Giants up. The Bronze Lance is going to be hitting for 30 damage each swing, and off 21, 22 attack, it's going to be hitting things more often than it's not. So there's going to be a substantial amount of balance between, well, yes, they're going to get harassed down, but they're also going to be dealing lots of damage as they plow through enemy lines.
What's interesting is that you say that, you mentioned that you probably already know the answer to the question, but even if I don't know the answer, take, for instance, the 2 attack and the order instead of turmoil, where I might do things a little different. One thing I know for certain, Nosy, is that you are a very skilled player, and even if I don't understand it, I'm sure you at least have a reason that it's at least viable. And one reason I say this is that we've already done a handful of these interviews already, and one of the things that has always been brought up is what we're going to go into now, which is, who are you afraid of? And I'm not going to lie, dude, your name has come up more than a few times. But I want to know who you're looking out for in this game.
Well, the first player I have to mention is Joe Brandon, who, as you're quite aware at least, that I have played a significant number of games with and against. Played a number of Disciples games with him and played many other games against him. And I know for a fact that any time I go to war with him, I start having to make morale checks. He is very good at extracting a pound of flesh. Now, I'm not going to shy away from going to war with him if it's required, but I do know that if I do go in for a war with him, then he is going to cause many problems that I need to solve.
Now, if you do go to war with him, would it be, if you're looking for a better war, would it be, would it be early game or late game?
Any war that I'm wanting to take early. Pan is a nation that I feel falls off in the late game. Mainly their key strengths are better suited to the early game. So I can't go to war with everyone in the early game, but I will find my most suitable target, hopefully, and go hard at them early. If that happens to be Joe, so be it. It could well be, well, Perrin mentioned Ubar. I'm certainly making precautions in the Blessed to say that I can go to war with them early and not have to worry about their invisibility tanking the stats of my centaurs.
Now, when we're talking about players that you're playing against, I mean, Marverni, if you do, I know that you would take the fight if you absolutely had to, but would you shy away because of the player?
I mean, given all else being equal, so equal supposed return on investment for going to war, chances of winning it, whatever the case may be, all else being equal, I would tend to lean away from warring Joe because I expect he will fight very strongly, no matter what situation he's in. But if I deem that the nation is a more favourable matchup for me than other players, then I'll certainly go in to fight him. But I've had enough experience fighting him to know that it's going to be tough.
Now let's jump really quickly into the Ubar player. Ubar player is played by Kirby, who has played this nation extensively, considering how long they've been out, which has been long.
Yeah, he joined his first game as them the day that they came out.
And has played 200. He's kind of like the Nobel.
Yeah, I'm in a game currently where he's playing Ubar, so I'm familiar.
Now, how frightening do you think that this is, that he has all of this experience on a single nation, whereas you're playing Pan for the very first time?
early game, if they're on my border, I want to attack them. As simple as that.
No fear.
Well, there's not much I can really do about whether or not I'm scared of them. It's simply the case that my best chances against them are in the early game. They have a nice capital to take, and the best opportunity to deal with them is before all of their cancerous shenanigans comes fully online.
And what I like is that, I mean, you get kind of two thought processes when you hear somebody say, like, who are you afraid of? One person might say, I will avoid them no matter what. And then the other is that I need to take them out as quickly as I can before they get big and strong. And
Oh,
it's
absolutely. If I see the opportunity where Joe is a small Marverni on my border and other neighbours are quite big, I just may well go for the juggler on that. I'm quite happy to knock him out of the game if I think I've got the opportunity to do that.
Perrin, what's your thoughts? Do you knock him out before he gets strong, or do you just try to race him to the finish?
Well, you got to take the nation into account too in that calculus, right? And I think the Uber one here is unique in that they have a whole bunch of tools that only come on later, whereas the fancy tool they have at the start of the game, which is the Djinn Warrior, because it's invisible, is directly countered by exactly the build that we've taken for Pangaea here. So in that case, I'd be like, yes, absolutely, rush, destroy, kill, maim, burn. If it was a nation that had I was scared of them, but they had a strong early game curve and they fell off later, then maybe I'm going to try and push that conflict down the road and pick a more advantageous conflict early.
Okay, any other players that you are on the lookout for?
Well, I've certainly had some experience with. Well, I've only played once against Sackney, but I'm familiar with him as a player, and I know he's quite competent. I'm interested to see how he handles Machaka, which is a very interesting nation, fair to say, in EA especially. I'm not sure how to pronounce the Helheim player's name. I know that he's French players. Yeah, I don't even know how to begin pronouncing that.
Oh,
But,
Chuman, yeah.
Chuman? Okay.
No,
Mandar,
it's
help me out with
pronounced
this.
chow mein.
Chow mein.
Yeah, I swear to God, I've had him pronounce it for me. The X is like a CH, and the T you just sort of pretend to pronounce because it's French.
Right. Okay.
Wait, is that like a real, like, is it really something in French?
It's supposed to be Basque, apparently, and without the OU, apparently the vowels are supposed to be a little different, but it's basically Basque, which is the region between France and Spain.
Now,
Right.
Helheim, you said, is one of the stronger nations, correct?
Based on performances in practice, I'm pretty sure they are the winningest nation in EA.
That amazes me. I've never seen them. That being said, I haven't played that many games compared to a lot of people. Where do you put these guys at, Brent?
Yeah, they're up there. They're in that top tier. I would put them slightly above Pan. There are things they have where Pan does those things better. So, for example, Helheim doesn't have an assassin, but Death Air is such a good cross path. They have elves just make fantastic bugs. The Sacreds are great. It's a limited nation, but the tools it has are so good at what it tries to do that I rate Helheim. Whenever I've seen it, it's performed well. I just haven't seen it that much.
Mandar, what
One of
does
those things, it's got a couple of things that it does really well.
what is
You mean
Death
Air
Air?
Death?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one. It produces, it lets you Cloud Trapeze and Horde of Skeletons, which is very cheap, efficient magic phase rating. It lets you Cloud Trapeze in general, which lets you magic phase, which is excellent for so many reasons that if we get into it in this video will never end. It lets you cast Winds of Death to age out old people and people with a low max age or people with low magic resistance. It lets you cast Wailing Winds, which is highly disruptive to morale. It combos nicely with Blood Rain, which through some shenanigans Helheim can also get off. It lets you produce Corpse Constructs, which are, to paraphrase TRHMC, another excellent player, The best chaff in the game. They're shock resistant. They are cheap. They are plentiful. They're great at sieging forts. They don't have morale issues. They're excellent. And of course, it lets you just have the regular air and death things, which are already two of the best paths in the game. Now, to be fair, I think about probably 7 out of the 8 paths in the game are some of the best paths in the game. So maybe take that with a grain of salt. But it's air death, good combo.
So with Helheim and with Machaka, what's our chances of seeing you rushing them or not rushing the basic player?
Well, I have one experience with Xiaomin previously, where he played very, very well. He actually won that game. It was a Disciples game. Unfortunately, Joe and I were on the complete opposite side of the map to him, and he just gobbled up everyone before we could even reach him. But I was able to witness some high level play from him on that particular occasion. So I know that he's quite a capable player.
Who was his partner in that one?
I can't remember. I just remember that he played M.A. Micklin and his partner played M.A. Nazca. And the Nazca player did okay, but Xiaomin as Micklin really demolished everyone around us. So we eventually managed to get borders with them and try and push them off thrones, but they were already too big.
And what's really interesting is that, I mean, you've been around here, Nosy, for quite a while. Of the players, how many of these players have you already played with?
I've played with Kirby a couple of times, although one of those games I didn't have any interaction with him at all because I got eaten by Lucid. I don't believe I've played with Gripper, or if I have, he did not have an impact on the game, and I didn't have much to do with him. I have not played with the Theridos or Arco players. I have played with Helheim, Machaka, and Van previously. And the Van player, I believe, every time I've played with him, he has been Vanheim of some particular age.
And this is the same Van player who played in Dancing Monk, who did very well for himself. Of note as well is that the RCK, the Theridos player, is the one who won the last omniscient mod, which is one of the main reasons why he was brought back, even though he's only played like 4 games.
That's interesting.
I'm really looking forward to this, just because we have got very high level of play, very high level players, and I'm really excited that I was able to have this interview with you, because just being able to see how your line of thinking is in a pretender and looking at a nation. So I appreciate this, and thank you very much for being here.
That's all right. Not a problem.
Perrin, thanks again for being a co-host. I really appreciate you being. I know that you, me, and Nosy are all in about the same time zone, right?
Yeah, it's 11 p.m. here now.
Yeah, so I appreciate you actually doing videos on our time zone rather than kowtowing to the American one we usually do.
Yeah, they'll make a coffee drinker out of me yet.
And then speaking of Americans, Mandar, thanks for joining with us.
Thank you for having me. This is always fun.
Now this is morning for you, right?
Yeah, it's about 9 in the morning.
Yeah, this is about the time when I usually start my recording. So I hope you have lots of coffee. Thanks for waking up early for us.
9 in the morning is early?
Oh, dude, anything before noon is early for me. I used to do teaching that was like I teach until like midnight or something like that. So then you
don't you teach kindergartners? Isn't their bedtime like 8?
Dude, I have taught everything. I have taught college students, adults, kindergartners, everything in between. And let me just tell you, the worst was when I went from I worked until 10 p.m. because that threw my lifetime schedule off. So, yes, 9 o'clock is very, very early. I appreciate, and my kudos to people who wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning to do videos.
Oh, you don't want to know when I woke up.
Not at all. Okay, guys. Well, I'll see you guys in the next one. I hope you enjoyed this one.